Welcome back to Ticker News. Well, people who are already feeling isolated from the world may have felt even more alone during the pandemic. Britt Oase is CEO of the Special Olympics Oregon and says intellectually disabled individuals struggled more so than others. But Britt and her team are doing something about it. It's great to have her on Ticker News. Welcome in today.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, great. Thanks for your time. So maybe to begin, obviously the pandemic has been so difficult for so many people, but what sort of experience do intellectually disabled people have who might already be, feeling alone? Do you have, some experience and knowledge in this area? Clearly you do.
Certainly, we do. In normal times, non-pandemic times, people with intellectual disabilities tend to be more isolated and have challenges fitting into community or making friends. And with the pandemic, that's been really magnified. And we serve a wide spectrum of people with ID. Some of our athletes and participants, you could sit across from them and not even realize that they have a disability, and they're very high functioning and lead active and full lives. But on the other end of the spectrum, there's many who live in group homes, really struggle with communication or just feeling included. And so that was a real challenge for us when we realized life as we knew it had been very rocked back in March of 2020.
So there are around 15% of people globally, which is about 1 billion people, who struggle with educational disability. So how does physical activity and also competition benefit these individuals in particular?
That's a great question. And I think most of us feel better when we're active, right? And, when you can get outside and go for a walk, and even incorporate friendships with fitness and camaraderie. And so over the last year, where people were isolated and not able to participate in team sports that they love and are used to, we created virtual programs. And so our athletes were able to hop online any time of the day or night and find activities to participate in. We hosted social hours, and we would connect college athletes who are going through the same loss of sport that they love and missed playing with our athletes. And they found common ground. They would connect and talk about sport and what they love and find useful tips for, being active even during the pandemic. We did fitness challenges, so our athletes would, partake in different things, whether it was steps competitions or activities like going out and finding a basketball hoop and shooting baskets and, competing against each other on stuff like that. We paired athletes with virtual coaches. So we would find volunteers, and this is a great way for communities and businesses to get involved because people from all over the state were able to coach athletes regardless of their location, regardless of time constraints, and just hop online and find ways to keep athletes physically fit. And it could be jump roping, it could be skills competitions, like I said, dribbling a basketball or juggling a soccer ball. It could be just motivation, like, hey, here's some ideas on how to get active. Let's go for a bike ride, go for a walk. Maybe it's push-ups or sit-ups. And sometimes you just need to know that you're not in this alone and that somebody's there to support you and encourage you and give you some tips and feedback. And so, we actually found the online platform to be really effective. It's not our ideal, but it was good.
So tell us more about the Special Olympics. I know it's across the globe. I think there are around 172 countries that you're working inside. So what's the mission? Is there an overall mission? Does it vary throughout some of these different countries?
It does. Each program, each country and program has kind of its own initiative, but our common bond is always sport, and using sport as a platform for inclusion and creating unified opportunities for people with and without disabilities to participate in sport together. Sport connects people in a way that a lot of other things just don't. It's a common denominator. It's something that, and you don't have to be a great athlete. You just have to want to move your body, whether you're in a wheelchair or you're a wonderful, gifted athlete. Everybody with a body can move and can find ways to be fit and active. And so, we use sport as our platform, but we're in school programs. We work with students to create more inclusive school environments, which helps to reduce bullying. We're very active in the health space and advocating for people who have disabilities to ensure that they have equal access to health care. Oftentimes that's not the case, and sometimes health providers need special training or different ways to access health care for people with intellectual disabilities. And so we're very active in the health space. And just social inclusion and finding ways to really eliminate those gaps where people are isolated, and teaching people how to include and how to find ways to make sure that people who have intellectual disabilities are not left alone.
So just to finish, what would you say to someone out there, whether it's a friend, family member, or anyone, in terms of encouraging people to get more involved, in sport, and why they should, in particular with someone with an educational disability? What are sort of the first steps to make, do you think?
Well, I think first of all, it's okay to not have all of the answers. Sometimes I think people get intimidated, and it's like the fear of the unknown. And it
Sure.
might just be, I don't know how to communicate, or I don't know, I'm not comfortable. And that's okay. We all have to get outside of our comfort zone, and sometimes just, reaching out. Special Olympics is an incredible organization, and there's a place for everybody within this movement. If you have an intellectual disability, it's the most welcoming, inclusive environment you could possibly be a part of. And if you don't, it's a great place to volunteer as a coach, as a mentor. And so I would just really encourage people to, whether it's Special Olympics or another program, all of our communities, whether it's businesses, schools, or just our society, it's better when we find ways to include everybody. And Special Olympics specifically, which is what I'm most familiar with, it's proven that people who are in our program have an easier time getting jobs, that they're healthier, they're happier. The feedback that we get from families and educators and healthcare providers is incredible. And so I would really encourage people to consider, just whether it's being a coach with athletics or just joining a social program that is focused on inclusion and diversity. And it's okay if you don't know how to relate or how to connect. You'll learn. And we're all in this big game of life together. And I think when we learn to embrace our differences and learn from each other and accept each other, we're all better off for it.
Sounds pretty good to me. Britt, thank you so much for your time today and all your work so far. If people want to learn a little bit more, where can they head?
SpecialOlympics.org is a wonderful website with all of the information, and we're a global movement. And so we're everywhere. And so that's the best place to go for resources and information about how to get involved.
Thanks so much for being on Ticker News today.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.